I think I was at events like 2 or 3 nights a week, just, like, connecting with people and letting them know what I do and hopefully meeting someone who is writing a roundup blog about where to shop Canadian this month or different things like that. It doesn't have to be as specific to your actual product, but something that you can fall into that category and just remind people that you exist because a lot of times, especially in this space of content, whether it's a blog, it's a mainstream, website or media platform, everyone needs content. Everyone needs another person to talk about that's not the same as last time. So plugging yourself and getting yourself in there is helping the person who's writing it and what their work that they're doing, you're actually helping them. So it's a
Mhm.
win-win and it's just it is being fearless and just like going for it because truly the worst you're going to hear is no. And then you just move on to the next.
Awesome. Hey, Mary. So nice to see you today. Super excited to dive into our conversation. So, first off, let's do an introduction. Mary Young of Mary Young Intimates.
That's me.
Yeah, that's you. So, if you can give us a little bit of background in terms of you and what you do today.
Perfect. So, as you know, my name is Mary Young, and I'm the founder and designer of my namesake brand, Mary Young. And we have been around for 8 years, which is pretty crazy when I think about how much time of my life that is. But we are a lifestyle, a lingerie, loungewear, and now swimwear clothing brand. And we are committed to sustainability and ethical practices. So, we produce everything in Canada in small batches and we are really focused on igniting and inspiring moments of self love and acceptance through our garments. So, really just encouraging women to celebrate their natural shape, celebrate who they are, and not have to fit into whatever society deems sexy or beautiful at this time, because we know that changes year to year.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, I told you before this interview that my mind goes in a million places. So I have like a million questions already just based on that little intro. And where do I start? Okay, so you've been around for 8 years. That feels like such a long time.
It is.
Right? 8 years? I can't believe it. First of all, congratulations, because that
Thank
is a
you.
milestone in and of itself. So talk to us about how you started. I read in an article somewhere that, when you initially launched, you thought that you were going to be in, retail first and then D2C, but then that kind of, flipped and went the other way around, right? So
Completely.
yeah,
Yes.
so talk to us about that and talk to us about your thought process going in and then how that flipped and why it flipped.
Yeah, so in 2014, when I first wrote the business plan for Mary Young, I had just finished 4 years of fashion school in Toronto, and so I had been studying the industry for the past 4 years, and from 2010 to 2014, the way you sold garments was through wholesale, through, business to business, sales and being in different stores, ideally like Nordstrom and Holtz and like the big names. So when I wrote my business plan, that's what I knew to be the way to sell garments and to build a brand. And I looked at e-com as sort of an additional, hopefully I can sell some things. I had spent time on Etsy before. So I was like, it'll be similar to Etsy, a little bit harder because I'm not going to be in a marketplace. I'm going to have my own website. So driving traffic, SEO, all that good stuff isn't as easy as hopefully getting into retail. But in 2014, that's when everything really did change and flipped in the industry because Shopify was growing and it was making it easier for small and medium sized businesses to actually sell online direct to consumer. And so I was able to open an e-com shop that wasn't through Etsy or through another, marketplace or platform. And I started getting sales through my website before I started getting orders from stores. And I realized, okay, like I can connect with consumers one on one through our website and have connections with them, have their email, be able to have exchanges that way. Whereas if I'm selling through big box retailers, I don't have any connection with the end customer. I don't even know who they are, where they live, anything. And so I really looked at, especially as a personal brand being named after myself, I wanted to be able to build that community and that connection. And so it made so much more sense to focus and invest in the direct to consumer channel than in the wholesale channel.
Awesome. I love that. So again, a couple things there. I also studied fashion, also in Toronto. I'm not gonna date myself because when I studied, there was no online. Everything was so manual. It was like, a very different world. And, so I agree that, like, completely changed. So that's pretty interesting in and of itself. And then from the, D2C perspective and Shopify and online, so it sounds like while you had a presence on online, it wasn't the thing you were, like, going after specifically, it just happened.
It happened more organically.
Right, so what was your what was the strategy behind the online store, to begin with, that, still allowed you to bring in customers? And then how did your strategy evolve after that, when you realized that you can connect with customers one-on-one?
Yeah, so I think at first it was more of an organic thing, like people were shopping online. It was, mostly friends, friends of friends, like that, your small network, which is really great. And then once I saw that becoming more consistent, I realized, okay, this is a space that I do need to invest my time into and not focus as much on the box chains and the bigger names. So I learned a lot about SEO. I highly recommend doing an online course or reading every article. And that was a big thing in the early days was SEO. So I reached out to almost every single blog and other media outlet to just try to get some backlinks to maryyoung.com. I was like, please just click through. Like, we need to build up our SEO presence. So that was a huge starting space for me in terms of just getting our website at least indexed on Google. So it wasn't like page 12. It was like within the first 4 pages was like a key goal of mine. And then using social media was huge. So social media at in 20 well, this is more 2015, 2016 was big. Instagram was huge. It was the place everyone wanted to be. Everyone was connecting. You would make all these like online friends. And it was an amazing space for us to grow Mary Young and have that one on one connection too, because people who shop our site would follow us on Instagram, would see things that we're posting, then go back to our site. So there was a lot of like cross channel promotion that way. And it was really great to be able to build that relationship with me as an individual through the business to our community and customers.
Mhm. Awesome. I love that. I love that you went out and sought after like different blogs that could do backlinks. I think that in itself is a little nugget. And I don't think like small entrepreneurial brands really think about that in the beginning. Um, so talk to us about that process and like how many doors did you knock on and what does that feel like? Because I feel like today and this is like a constant theme throughout these podcast interviews. Like we all see the glitz and glamour in the end. We're like, "Oh my god, Mary Young is amazing. Look at where she is today. Look at her Instagram account. Like look at how fabulous everything is." But people forget like in the last X number of years, where you started from and all the hard work that went into it. So, yeah, so talk to us about, I think, like, just the, like, guts and the grit that you had to, like, actually just reach out to people, to build these relationships and go through that. I feel like sometimes we're afraid to,
Oh,
so
of course.
yeah, someone else's opinion and just experience with that.
Well, you have to do it afraid because you will be. So you definitely need to just know that the fear of rejection is very real. I'm very thankful I had a great example learning how to deal with rejection. So I worked as a fundraiser for charities in my school years. So I was one of those like really fun people that would stand on the sidewalk and get you to sponsor children on the street, which, believe it or not, people do sponsor children on their street, but that actually taught me so much about sales and not really a direct sales way because when you work in retail and you work at a shoe store, for example, people that are coming in have thought about buying shoes. They're coming in because they've already thought that idea of, yeah, I do want shoes, or I am looking for X, Y, and Z. So it's an easier sale to make. But when you're working for a charity and you're standing on the street, you are not somewhere where someone's coming to you. You are literally interrupting their day to tell them about something that they probably haven't woken up and thought about ever, that today is the day I'm going to sponsor a kid. And you're able to stop and have a conversation with them and get them to see the benefits and what they're able to do with their dollar and how far that can go and get them to stand on the sidewalk and literally sponsor a child. You hear no like 60 to 100 times a day and you maybe hear yes once. So I was so accustomed to hearing no that when I got a yes, I was like, great, I can go for another like 6 months without another yes. Like, this is fine. I can just keep pushing, it is so much grit and it is just like knocking constantly. So cold emails, going to events, networking, every opportunity I had to shamelessly plug myself and my brand, I did it. So I had a lot of friends who were working, in the fashion PR marketing industry. Different events were going on in Toronto often. I think I was at events like 2 or 3 nights a week, just like connecting with people and letting them know what I do, and hopefully meeting someone who is writing a roundup blog about where to shop Canadian this month or different things like that. It doesn't have to be as specific to your actual product, but something that you can fall into that category and just remind people that you exist, because a lot of times, especially in this space of content, whether it's a blog, it's a mainstream, website or media platform, everyone needs content. Everyone needs another person to talk about that's not the same as last time. So plugging yourself and getting yourself in there is helping the person who's writing it, and what their work that they're doing, you're actually helping them. So it's a win-win, and it's just it is being fearless and just like going for it, because truly the worst you're going to hear is no. And then you just move on to the next.
Yeah, no, definitely. I know 100%. Like it happens all the time. We all get rejected, and I feel like it's just part of the game. And I feel like as entrepreneurs, it just like makes you just keep going. It just gives you that, I don't know, strength or that like resilience, or you're like, I'm just gonna keep going. I just gotta keep going. It's a numbers game. You gotta keep throwing mud at the wall or whatever that saying
Mhm.
is.
Yeah.
um, so yeah, I totally agree 100%. So you mentioned charity work and kind of like an offshoot of that. I know you started like it's all about the self-love and the self-love club. I think lingerie you mentioned in the beginning. It's a different space. There's a lot traditional media, there's a lot of traditional looks that come out of that, and I love the thought process behind your garments, and the reason you actually started this line. So talk to us about that self-love aspect of it, and how that plays into your day-to-day, from a designer, from a boss, from a coworker. Like, what does that look like, and how is that ingrained in your DNA?
It's definitely ingrained in my DNA, and I think before the term self-love was so popularized, it was always about, like, confidence or, self-appreciation, different things like that, and I, as many young women, struggled as, like, a teenager to feel like I fit in or where I belonged, and so I think that was always something I was striving for, and I grew up loving the fashion industry, so I would buy as many magazines as possible and, always hope to see myself or my garments in a magazine, just because I just knew this is what I wanted for my future. But as I would always spend so much time looking at an industry or marketing as a whole, I realized that I never felt represented. And I'm a white woman and I should be represented based on what we've seen, but I wasn't tall, blonde, blue eyed, the right type of beautiful or skinny. And so it became very clear to me that fashion as a whole, and specifically lingerie, was just not cutting it. And it was not representing the women, the vast majority of women that purchase it and invest into this industry. They were not being represented in what they were buying. They were never seeing themselves. They never felt worthy or beautiful. And to me, that's like actually heartbreaking that we as women are just told we're never enough and we never see ourselves to feel like we can celebrate ourselves and proudly and confidently celebrate who we are. And so when it came down to lingerie, it's the first thing you put on in the morning. It's the very first garment you put on. And if you're putting something on that you're trying to fit into a box, or you're trying to lift or flatten or reshape who you are, that's the energy you're going to carry throughout the rest of your day. So you're not going to feel confident in who you are because you're always trying to fit into what society wants you to be. And so the whole concept behind self-love within lingerie and intimates is when you put this on at the beginning of the day, it's you. It's only enhancing your natural shape. It's only celebrating who you are, and it's only empowering you to go and being confident in every area of your life. So we're not about reshaping, lifting, changing who you are. It really is about celebrating who you are and making sure that you're comfortable to go and chase your dreams and do what you need to do. You should never feel like, oh, I can't wait to get home to take this off because it's so uncomfortable and I don't want to wear this anymore. So that's really where the self-love comes in, and obviously now with having the term self-love, it makes a lot more sense than just being like, "Well, you're confident in your body." It really is that love for yourself that you don't wanna change and fit into what someone else wants, and so that really has just carried throughout everything that we do. So even in our small team, we openly talk about self-love, about self-care. We have the self-love club, which is a movement that Mary Young the brand powers, and it's really just a digital and sometimes physical space that we talk about self-love and acceptance. And it's easy to start with self-love in a physical sense, but we expand that conversation into so many areas of life. And I think especially over the past 2 years since the pandemic, we've really understood the importance of self-love and self-care, especially when there's so many things happening that are out of your control, but you can continue to control how you care and love for yourself, and then that becomes like a ripple effect in all areas of your life.
Mhm, definitely. So for those listening, tell us how can you be a part of the self-love club that you just mentioned?
It's so easy. You don't even have to buy Mary Young. Like some people are like, "Well, I haven't bought your product." And it's like, you don't have to. We have a journal on our website. So if you go to maryyoung.com, you'll see the Self Love Club and you can click right there. And there's a lot of content that we have guest writers, experts, muses, different stories around self love and acceptance. And it's a great space to read and be inspired. And then again, on social media, on our Instagram and our TikTok, we do a lot of self love content to just remind people to slow down and look outside of like the to-do list and the checklist that we're also inundated with every single day, and to just explore different aspects of what self-love and self-care can look like.
Mhm, definitely. I think that, Mary Young has to be like my podcast interview gift that I give out because I love the meaning behind it. Like, it's exactly what we're after, right? The empowerment to go out and do what you want to do and not what you're expected to do. Like, so this is perfect. It's like a match made in heaven.
It really is,
I love
yes.
I love that. And so speaking of love and like self-love, love in general, I know that you're very big on sustainability, and we know that's a big, um, talking point these days when it comes to fashion and sustainability and the earth and things like that. So talk to us about sustainability and how it is that you take that into consideration and what role it plays in your creative process.
Yeah, so sustainability has been huge for us since the very beginning. We have always wanted to make sure that what we do has a positive impact versus a negative impact. So, when it comes down to even just our production, for example, we do smaller batch production instead of mass production. So, we're not wasting materials. We're not sitting on styles that don't sell through and then having to offload them at the end of the season, which a lot of big fast fashion brands are known for doing. And then in terms of our actual product, we use sustainable materials. So majority of our materials are rayon from bamboo, which is OECOTEX certified. So basically it just means it's good for your body, it's better for the environment to produce, and it's something you can feel good about wearing as well as feel good in because it's really soft and it has a long lifespan. So I think those are really, tangible things that we can focus in on. And another thing that we see within fashion is the overwhelming use of single use plastics. So a lot of fashion companies, if you order online, you'll get your garments. Every garment is in a plastic bag inside another plastic bag, and everything is just plastic and it's single use. So we don't actually use plastic in any of our products. We do have recycled plastic mailers and they are recyclable as well. But when you open up our package, everything that you've purchased will be wrapped in tissue, which is recyclable. Any other inserts like postcards or paper, again, all of that is recyclable. So everything that we do, we want to have as minimal impact on the environment as possible and just continue to leave this world hopefully in a better place than when we came into it.
Mhm, that's awesome. So I'm thinking about timeline. So 8 years ago, sustainability wasn't as big as it is today. So how did you find, like, going down that road? How was that for you from an experience standpoint, like, being able to get into that?
Yeah, it was very hard. Yeah, in 2014, even up to 2016, sustainability was not a term most people even knew or talked about. For us, we've always used sustainable materials, and I think that was one great thing we were always committed to doing without sort of like greenwashing, being like, "Look at us, we are doing like the right thing. We're green." All those things. It was just that was the core value of what we wanted to start with. But it definitely is hard as a small business to purchase sustainable materials, and whether that's packaging or actual fabric, you need to have a bit more buying power. So we've always invested more into our products. Obviously, our price point is a bit higher being produced in Canada. We pay living wages, not just fair wages. So we make sure that, everyone in the process of Mary Young is being sustainable, but also being treated ethically and given the opportunity to continue to grow. And that's something that we really have always had from the beginning. So we've been able to commit to sustainability through our fabrics, through our production, and through our packaging. And that's something that, as we've gotten bigger, has become easier. And obviously, as the years have passed, it's become more accessible. But it was definitely hard in the beginning to commit to that too, because it was a lot of upfront cost, and we weren't selling that much product in the early years. So it felt like, we're spending a lot and we're really hoping that we see the return and the reward later on. But at the end of the day, it's really about what we're doing is the right thing. And I'm very, very much about doing the right thing when I can.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I love that. One thing that just came to mind in terms of getting started and just the ups and downs that you've gone through. Um, Keeping your company Canadian, keeping everything made in Canada. How did you go about that for anyone listening out there that's like, I really want to keep my product close to home. I really want to go down this route. How, what's the kind of process that you go through to start to source, everything that you would need for that, for your product?
It's a lot of research, cold calls, cold emails. It took us months to find a production facility. I roped my mom in to help cold calling places and asking them, "Do you sew this? Do you have this machine?" A lot of people didn't really understand our style of lingerie also. They're like, "Well, there's no wire or padding. How do you expect us to make this?" I'm like, "Okay, it's like a swimsuit, but just not for swimming," I guess is the best way of kind of explaining it. So it took a while to find a production partner, but once we were able to, we've looked at them very much as a partner. And I think that's one of the biggest things is working with other Canadians or even just working with someone that you value is you look at them as a partner and not just a vendor. When you start to look at people as partners to your business, you know that they are just as integral to your growth and the same vice versa. So having that sort of respect and understanding I personally believe allows a business to grow more ethically and honestly and just more naturally too, because you actually enjoy working with them and you don't look at them as, well, you're working for me. I'm paying you to do X, Y, and Z. It's we're working together to meet our end goal.
Yeah, no, definitely. That makes sense. I had someone else on that I interviewed and they said the same thing. It's just and it's building relationships. We're all in the people business, right?
We
So
are.
if you can build relationships, then it makes, work a lot easier. And it's funny that you're like trying to explain to manufacturers, like, okay, it's like this, but it's and I bet you most of the manufacturers that you're speaking to were mostly male. So it's like even harder to have that because they can't grasp it, right?
We're like, what does this mean?
Right? Yeah, exactly. So from that standpoint, actually, have you seen any change in the manufacturing side of the business?
Yeah, so our manufacturer that we work with, they've been doing lingerie now for over 30 years. So they have a great, history in the lingerie space. And when I went to them, it was very much the same thing. Their two partners own the business, a male and a female. And so it was interesting to explain it. The male's, he's very, very well in touch with what sells, what doesn't sell. So he understood the concept. He didn't understand that people would want to buy that at the time. He's like, I don't know who your consumer is. I was like, don't worry, don't worry. I know who my consumer is. There's people out there. And he's even joked about like, now we've been working together for basically 8 years. And he's like, yeah, I remember when you came, I thought, this young girl will, she'll do a couple things. We'll see how long this lasts. And he's like, and now look at you. He's like, I can't get rid of you. You're always here. You're always calling me. And so it's been really great to see that even for people who've been in the lingerie industry, they've seen how what we've been doing at Mary Young has changed the industry as a whole. We've seen, big companies like Calvin Klein, even Victoria's Secret now is trying to do soft cup bras and fit into the more empowering products versus the reshaping. And so I know that it's been great to have people be open to change within the industry and see that it is time that things change and the narrative and the marketing and the approach of what we're doing is different.
Yeah, no, definitely. And you mentioned that, when you first met with your manufacturer, he thought, young girl, she'll do a few things. And I read somewhere that you said that, one of the most important things to do is to have a business plan. And it's like so key. And it's so funny how we think, yeah, obviously, but there's so many people who actually don't, take that step. So from that perspective, can you give our listeners some advice in terms of, what you went through as you did your business plan? Um, you mentioned he said, "I don't know who your consumer is." And you're like, "I know who they are." Like, obviously, you did your research. So talk us through what that the steps were that you took in that process.
Yeah, so I think a business plan, the reason why a lot of people don't do it is it's very daunting. It's a very big, document that you work on. It's broken down into different categories between finance, production, marketing, all these different things, but it helps you gather all of your different ideas. And as a creative, let's be honest, we have so many ideas that are running around all the time. So it helps harness those ideas and bring them into one place. And it's also a really good practice in challenging your mindset as an entrepreneur. How will you overcome obstacles? How are you going to dive a bit deeper, not just see, oh, yeah, yeah, like I know we'll sell. My friends say they want this. How can you really see where the market's going, what you can offer, how you're going to market it, where your customers are? So there's so many different aspects of a business plan that help you get your idea into a more concrete place so that when an obstacle or a hurdle comes your way, because it will, you have the knowledge and the practice of already kind of addressing that in your business plan to be agile and move through it. And the biggest thing is your business plan will change, as mine did. I thought I was going to sell in, stores. I was not gonna be selling online, and then, like, 6 months later, I was like, "Flip that, we're changing how we're selling." But it's a really great way as an entrepreneur when you have so many ideas to build a roadmap that you can at least start to follow, and you can change as you get feedback from your customers, the industry changes, and things like that. But it is a really helpful place, to learn about what your product's gonna be, how you're gonna sell it, who you're gonna sell it to, and where you're gonna sell it to them, because there's so many different touch points in terms of launching a business that you really do wanna have to think through all the different aspects before you take out a loan or you borrow money or you get investors, whatever it may be. You really wanna make sure that you're in a good place with the business as a whole before kind of taking off and launching the whole thing.
Mhm, definitely. And when it comes to that business plan, did you just like Google business plan and just like kind of figure out what that template looks like and then create it on your own?
So there's a lot of places you can download free templates. I know when I started, I actually worked with an organization in Canada called Futurpreneur, and they support entrepreneurs. I think it's aged 18 to 29 or 39 with entrepreneurial journeys, and they actually support you in getting funding through different loans, and they help you have like a payback plan, which is really great when you've never taken loans in the tens of thousands of dollars. So they when you apply with them before you even get approved, they give you all these different templates to work on, like cash flow templates, business plan templates. So if you're in Canada and you're looking for some sort of support, I would highly recommend looking at Futurepreneur. They're really amazing. They also pair you with a mentor as well, so it gives you a lot of support. But basically, if you find a template, you can just continue to fill things in, and you want to have a SWOT analysis and all these different things. So once you have the template, it'll give you the right format and all the different information that you need to have. But just honestly, everything's on the internet now. I'm like, oh, I wish I started now, because like you could watch YouTube and learn a whole degree on YouTube now.
Right.
It's crazy.
I know, it's insane, it's insane. It really is. So you have this business plan, you've put this together, what's your next step? What do you do next, Mary?
Ugh, take me back. So I had my business plan. I knew what I wanted to do. I had 3 designs that we were going to launch with. So I was still following like the fashion calendar based on wholesale. So I wanted to launch with 3 designs online and then start shopping around my spring collection, because we launched at the end of 2014. So you need to be selling next season in the current season. So the 3 designs, I sourced the material, I sourced the elastic, the trim, the tags, all the different vendors that come together to make one single garment, and worked with a production facility that's not the one that I currently worked with a different one, and got everything ready for the marketing, the back end, started teasing things on the internet, had like, social media building up, getting our website, trying to collect newsletter or emails so I could send out newsletters. And the product I received from the production, they did not produce it the way that it should have been done. Again, this is a big learning lesson. So about half of the units that I ordered were just not even wearable, because they just, in a long story, they faked some stitches that to look a certain way but were not functional, because again, they didn't understand our type of lingerie. And so then I spent time resewing most of those garments and launched them online. And again, that's when I started seeing they were selling online. But at the same time, I had finished designing our spring collection. I had samples for the spring collection, and I was knocking on doors of retail stores and emailing people with all of the spring designs to try to get that picked up in stores as well. So it was busy. It was a busy time.
Very busy, very, very busy, and you just kind of fast forwarded to like my next question that came to mind. So thinking back to your younger self, 8 years ago when you first started, so you had that mishap with your production. What is the biggest lesson you learned that you would tell yourself, if, looking back, you'd be like, okay, here's something to watch out for. Like, what is that? The big takeaway for you?
I would say even doing that, I would probably do the same thing again and have that big mistake happen because it was one of the biggest learning lessons of how to be agile. And being an entrepreneur and being a business owner, you have to be agile. You have a plan, you have a plan B and maybe C. You're probably going to go with plan J, plan M, who knows? It's you really have to keep being agile and going with the curveballs that come your way. So I think for me, what I would likely tell myself is it's not gonna go the way that you think, and you just need to have trust and patience and stay calm as you adjust to what things happen and how you can, fix certain things, and I think a lot of it too is not, at a young age and being a young entrepreneur, everything feels like this could be the end, so not getting too overwhelmed with when things go wrong, there's always a solution.
Oh, 100%. Even at my age, it's like, "Oh my god, this could be the end," but it's like, "Oh, you just gotta figure it out," you know what I mean? So,
Exactly.
no stress. I'm always laughing or smiling because if I don't, you know what the alternative
Yeah,
is, so,
exactly.
let's just figure it out. Um, that's awesome. So, that's great in terms of, like, you would still do things that that happened, so no big pitfalls. But in terms of, your launch and when you first started, so you started with the lingerie space. Today you have swim. How long did it take you to go from just intimates and then transition to add swim? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, so we started with intimates and then we slowly added in some loungewear styles like some shorts, some t-shirts, a robe. Those were smaller add-ons that were easy to sort of introduce. Swim was in the works for a while. The pandemic definitely set that one back. It was supposed to happen almost 3 years in a row, and it was like, well, there's another delay. There's another lost shipping container. So it was a lot of just taking again the same concept that Mary Young intimate stand for about empowering, celebrating the natural shape and, being about comfort and about, flexibility within everyone's lifestyle. We want to make sure that any customer can find a style or design that works for them. So we brought that same concept into swim. And again, the sustainability aspect is huge. So the material that we use is made out of recycled plastic. So we're not using anything that's more damaging to the environment. We're actually helping the environment with this material. It's again ethically produced, sustainably produced. So all those different levels of commitment are in every product as we continue to expand and grow. And so I think it was, an easy decision to launch Swim because it is very similar to our products and it does overlap with sort of our styles and our shapes, but it also follows the same mission and the pillars that Mary Young stands for.
Mhm, definitely. And how do you assess the, interest? Like, what was the process you went through to figure out, "Okay, should I even go down this route? Are my customers interested in swim?"
So a lot of our customers were asking us when we would launch Swim. So that was a really great start.
That
We
was
would have yeah, it was really nice when people would comment like, "But when are you having Swim? Is this a swimsuit?" There was a lot of people wearing our lingerie as swimsuits. Like I would have friends be like, "Oh, I was, over here today and I saw a girl in your bra." And I was like, "Wait, is that a Mary Young bra? Oh, why are you swimming in it? You know it's a bra, right?" She's like, "It's fine. It'll be great." I'm like, "I don't think it's gonna be like perfect, but okay, it can go wet." So it was definitely very, very natural for us to move into that space because our customers were looking for it. And I think listening to your customers is huge. And sometimes you have to ask to find out the answer. So we have, different levels of core customers. We have some VIP customers, returning customers. Those are ones we always like to sort of tap into if we can to get information. But a lot of times, if your customers want something, they're going to tell you, whether that's through email, through Instagram, whatever it may be. So just listen when they speak because they always have something to say. And it's usually what you need to hear.
always, always. Sometimes it's a little sassy, sometimes it's not.
But I appreciate sass. I'm not going to lie. I have it too. So I'm like, okay, I hear you. I see you.
Yeah, exactly. It's all appreciated. Awesome. So tell us, if you can, what's next? What's the next big thing for you? What are you looking what's, like, in your next five-year plan?
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm really looking at like 5-day plan. But 5-year plan, our goal is to really just commit to doing what we're doing. Obviously, we've seen the industry and the space change to be more empowering, more focused on representation and inclusivity. And I think that's so amazing. But I think as the years progress, we'll see which brands are committed to that versus which brands just sort of jumped on some hot trends. So we really want to be committed to that in the long run, how we have been for the past 8 years, and just be that sort of, safe space for our customers and community that they can always come back. They can see themselves in our products, whether we are able to expand into other garments or other products. We want to make sure that people feel seen, valued, heard, and loved when they shop with us, whether that's, actually spending a lot of money or just being a part of the self love club. We want to make sure that our space is consistent for those in, our community, that they always have somewhere to go, that they feel welcomed, because I think that's such an important thing in this day and age.
Mhm, definitely. And I feel like this kind of like trickles into a lot of things that you've said today in terms of like, not just living wages or not just, basic pay. Like you're actually empowering your employees. You talk about charity, you talk about, when you're canvassing on the street. So I feel like you have a very like humanitarian side of things to you as well. So how talk to us about the charities that you work with and how you've brought that into your product, and product offering as well.
Yeah, so we've partnered with many different charities over the years, and it's something that we're passionate about doing. And a lot of times the charities change based on what's happening in the landscape of the world. So, especially during 2020 and 2021, we've worked with a lot of Black Lives Matters organizations. We're a big supporter of representation and inclusivity. So, if you visit our website or our social media, you're going to see many different faces, ages, skin tones represented. And we want to make sure that our community knows we're committed to that representation. So, we obviously have started with a lot of self-love focused charities and female empowerment, but we want to continue to expand outside of that singular space and just make sure that we're able to make an impact. And then we also work with a lot of different shelters, women's shelters specifically, when we donate products. So if we are down to, a few sizes left, instead of trying to offload them somewhere, we see donation as a huge importance for us, that we can continue to give back to women in need. And sometimes we've done different like food drives or resource drives at pop-ups and things like that. So we're always looking for opportunities to be able to build that ripple effect and give back to our community and other communities as we continue to grow.
Mhm. I love that. It just reminded me, I work with a client who has like a give back, program. Is that something you do with your clients? Like if I have, Mary Young in I guess no, not intimates, but with the other add-ons, like, is that something that you guys do or have considered in the past?
It's something we've considered, and we've been looking into sort of like a recycling program with Mary Young. So in terms of garments that maybe you've worn for years and just don't have the same, lifespan for you anymore, or they don't sizing fit, whatever. So we are looking at how we can have a sustainable sort of recycling and upcycling program. Again, it's a bit harder in the intimate space than it may be in some other garments. So, working on how we can make that work and be functional, but it is something that we're always looking for. And we again, like we donate products, whether it's samples that we feel need to be donated versus being able to be sold during our sample sale. So we always encourage people that if maybe something doesn't serve them anymore, whether that's size, color, whatever it may be, that they can either pass it along to a friend or to a charity in order to give more life to that garment.
Yeah, definitely. I know. I won't name the brand, but this was a great customer experience moment for me where I ordered a bra online and it was the wrong size. So then I requested a different size. And the email that I got was like, oh, don't worry about your original order. Pass it on to someone who can use it. And I was like really touched by that because I thought, like, that's so lovely. It was so nice to be able to like, "Yeah, it's not gonna fit me. They don't want it back. Give it away to someone else who, it could fit." And from a customer experience standpoint, like, it was a great touch point. So, uh, yeah, so interesting. Um, awesome. So then last question for you, Mary. This podcast is called, Born to Be. So tell us. What were you born to be, Mary Young?
I, to be honest, was born to be an entrepreneur. This is something I knew from probably the age of like 4 or 5, like from I didn't even know the word was entrepreneur because again, I was 4 or 5, but I had been making clothes for my Barbies from the age of 3. I was hand sewing things. I ended up getting a Barbie sewing machine. I was crocheting, knitting. By the age of 13, I was designing logos for my clothing company. I was interning with fashion designers in high school. I always knew that I wanted to be my own boss and to be able to have an impact. I think that's been obviously a big thing for me is not about just like building a big company, but actually just being able to have an impact on others and cause a positive ripple effect. So once I found out what the word entrepreneur was and what the definition was, I was like, oh, that's me. That's what I want to do. So I'm very thankful that I've been able to follow, chase, and commit to my dreams to get to where I am today because, as you've mentioned, it takes a lot of determination and grit, and it hasn't been easy, but it is something that I'm very thankful that I've continued to pursue.
Awesome, I love that. And speaking of Barbie, this is gonna be my last question, I promise this time. Has Mary Young jumped on the Barbie core, trend?
We haven't yet. We have been having some internal Slack conversations about Barbie core and, part of it is like, yes, we love Barbie. Part of me is like, no, we hate Barbie because she's only one size and she's not proper representing who our community is, though I know Barbie is working on it. We do see the growth and progression. I may even say like maybe a groovy girl if I want to throw it back to like anyone who remembers groovy girls because there was a lot of representation with skin tones in groovy girls at least. So, maybe that's a partnership we'll see one day if they I don't even know if they still exist, but I hope they
I know,
do.
I have no idea. Well, we'll see, and
I'll find
we'll
out.
keep an yeah, we'll keep an eye out for that for
Yes,
sure.
exactly.
Awesome. Mary, this has been so great. You've dropped a lot of tidbits that I feel that our listeners will really uh, take into consideration. I think it'll be very encouraging for people to go out there and build that business plan and then go from there. So
Start
super,
the
super
business
excited.
plan.
Exactly, exactly. So thank you so much for your time today. And this is great.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so lovely to chat.
Awesome. Take care.